The smoothest scoundrel in the universe is returning to a galaxy far, far away. Billy D. Williams is reportedly set to reprise his role as Lando Calrissian in Star Wars Episode 9. No official announcements have been made, but according to The Hollywood Reporter, Williams will appear in the new film and will be present on set when shooting begins this fall, although it's unclear how big his part will be. This will be his first time appearing on screen as the character since 1983's Return of the Jedi, although he has voiced Lando in recent animated adventures like Star Wars Rebels. The character was last played by younger actor Donald Glover in the prequel Solo: A Star Wars Story, but given the failure of that film, don't be surprised if his version of Lando doesn't return. As for Billy D. Williams, he might be the only big cast member from the original trilogy to appear in Episode 9, although we'll have to wait and see. It hits theaters in December 2019. This does sound like it's going to be fun to see Lando back on screen. I kind of wish that we had seen him a little bit earlier, maybe even with Harrison Ford as Han Solo, but you know, it's going to be great to see him in the role again. Definitely. It's one of the things that I am absolutely most excited about for Episode 9. I wish that I was more excited for the movie, though. You know, and it's not like The Last Jedi. I've said it many times. I didn't hate that movie. There's lots that I like about it, but it really kind of poked the air out of all of the stuff that connected us to the trilogy that I know and love. You know, Episode 4, 5, and 6. It sort of just tied a bow around all of that stuff. So Lando coming in and he's kind of lonely in Episode 9. You know, without seeing the movie, I'm excited that he's coming, but I wish that it was with the rest of the team, you know? I can't help but feel that. But you know what? I have faith in J.J. Abrams. I think that he's going to be able to turn some of this around for sure and make something very cool. I have hope. I still have hope for Episode 9, but we will see very soon. Now, it's not the mileage, it's the years. The fifth Indiana Jones movie has been delayed yet again. Disney has announced that the long-awaited fifth film in the franchise will hit theaters on July 9th, 2021. Just a few weeks ago, rumors surfaced that the film was being pushed to 2020, so this is an entire year longer than many were expecting. No official reason has been given for the push, but there are reports that director Steven Spielberg wanted more work to be put into the screenplay, which has pushed the film back past several other projects that he has on the way. If you're wondering, the delay means Harrison Ford will be 77 or 78 years old during filming and will be turning 79 just a few days after the movie hits theaters. We gotta get this movie made, guys. This thing's gotta happen. I'm getting a bit worried for my boy Harrison Ford here, man. This is getting crazy. I'm still excited to see new Indiana Jones, don't get me wrong. My theory is increasingly growing that we're going to get some de-aging technology happening in Indiana Jones 5, and I don't mean to sound ageist or anything like that. Harrison Ford's just has been awesome in the recent stuff that he's been doing. He's been fantastic on screen. I have no doubts that he's going to be able to pull off a great performance. He's still very, very with it, you know, and I'm excited to see what comes of this. But yes, it will start to seem a little bit ridiculous if he's close to, like, edging on 80 and throwing his body around. So I think that we're going to be seeing some de-aging technology. And maybe some kind of a passing the torch. We'll see. You know, if any two people in the world can pull this off, it's Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford. So we'll see what happens here. We may be seeing the Game of Thrones spin-off series sooner than you might think. The secretive new prequel show is reportedly set to begin filming this fall, which means it could be hitting the airwaves as early as next year. The Belfast Telegraph reports that staff at the city's Paint Hall Studios, where Game of Thrones is filmed, have been told that the prequel series will be their next project, with a tentative start date slated for this October. If the news is true, it means the prequel could premiere in late 2019, just after the 8th and final season of Game of Thrones finishes up. Then again, there's no telling how long production and post-production will take. HBO hasn't said exactly what the prequel series will be about, but given the scale of the show's fantasy realm, there are loads of possibilities. Expect more details soon. This sounds great. You know, I think that we saw something kind of similar with Better Call Saul coming out after Breaking Bad, but I feel like they need at least a year to kind of hype us up and to let us know who the cast members are and some of the story threads and stuff. And they're probably gonna, you know, even do some connective tissue in the last few episodes of Game of Thrones as well, maybe even some flashback sequences or something. But this world is enormous. It's absolutely a great move on HBO's part to kind of keep us in that realm. It's been very weird to have this big delay, as it always is, between seasons of Game of Thrones, especially because it's percolating in the news right now. You've got Maisie Williams popping up with blood on her shoes, and everybody showed up for Jon and Rose's wedding, which is kind of cool. I am psyched for new Game of Thrones, and I am psyched for the prequels. I think they're going to do something really special there. Fingers are crossed. And whatever the new Game of Thrones series ends up being, it's coming amidst some big changes behind the scenes. HBO is going to alter direction now that their parent company Time Warner has been acquired by media conglomerate AT&T. The New York Times reports that longtime AT&T executive John Stankey, who was just put in charge of Warner Media and HBO, recently held a closed-door meeting with HBO bosses where he outlined a new direction for the network. He says that they need to do a better job of embracing online streaming and make it easier for viewers to watch their content, which will increase their subscriber base and the number of hours viewers spend watching every day. Although HBO already has their own streaming service, HBO Now, it's not as easy to use as rivals like Netflix and Hulu. It's worth pointing out the reason why AT&T wants more eyeballs on HBO content. According to the New York Times, Stankey specifically pointed out that the more hours viewers spend watching, the more data and information AT&T will be able to collect about them, which can then be sold to advertisers. This is what some people were worried about when a big service provider like AT&T set out to buy a content creator like Time Warner in the first place. Yes, all of these conglomerates where we're seeing a lot of the people that kind of have all the tracks into our houses, when they're involved in buying all of the content, and then there's all of these other conglomerates that get involved with these corporations in terms of advertising and sharing of data and stuff. It does get to be really kind of slippery, and we have every right to be concerned. They own the pipe that gets us all of this information, and so if they're collectively trying to figure out what that content is and who's using it and who's watching it and sort of selling all of that information back and forth, gets a little bit sneaky. And I would expect that there's going to be some pushback on this. It's a very, very interesting time because it's very easy to capture specific data about users, as we're seeing in the news every single day, with people accessing all of this content online. It's very easy to target and to kind of track us. And hopefully there are some groups and some bodies out there that have our backs on some of this stuff, and that the content makers aren't sort of put into a bind where they're just trying to, keep us glued to screens just so there is this user acquisition and this user data acquisition. Interesting days that we're about to go into here. And, I think that all of us fans of HBO really care about is that it doesn't really have a massive quality downgrade because of it. We don't want the series to get worse because there's just this new effort to just flood the markets. We want HBO stuff to be the top stuff, the best in class. But we're going to see. All right, the next WWE game won't be entering the ring on the Nintendo Switch. Publisher 2K Sports has confirmed that this year's WWE 2K19 will not be released on the Nintendo system. In a statement to Power Up Gaming, 2K says that the game is not coming to the platform because they're focused on making the best possible experience for WWE fans. The last entry, WWE 2K18, was released on the Switch a few months after its debut on other platforms, but it suffered from crippling technical problems like bugs and a poor frame rate, which made it a flop. Rather than fixing the problem, it seems 2K is just going to skip the system altogether, although they say they will continue evaluating opportunities to deliver the franchise on additional platforms, so it may return to the Switch at some point in the future. WWE 2K19 will smack down on the PS4, Xbox One, and PC this October. I didn't play 2K18 on the Switch. I'm not the hugest wrestling game fanatic out there, but I did read about the problems that plagued the game, and it was a very easy target for people to point at and say, wait a second, this Switch isn't as powerful as everybody thinks it's going to be. This machine is just going to have, lesser than ports out there. And you could certainly look at things like Wolfenstein 2 and Doom and other titles and stuff to kind of paint the picture that the Switch just can't keep up. And realistically, it doesn't have the horsepower of the other systems, but what it does have is this ability to take it with you everywhere. And it is going to be interesting to see if we're going to see developers and publishers have to carve up their IP and create kind of, I'm not going to use dumbed down, but maybe more mobilized versions of their software so that they can get onto the Switch platform. The Switch is still growing, it's still building an install base, it's a very successful platform. It would be silly for publishers to ignore this machine, but it does become a major expense if suddenly you're going to have to port this game that you've been building for more powerful systems to the Nintendo Switch and have it run optimally. And it's not easy to do this. We're finding out with things like 2K18 that developers are kind of struggling a little bit with this. It's either, you know, like what we saw with FIFA 18 and even the Switch version of NBA 2K18, there were, you know, some concessions made to bring that software over to the Nintendo platform. It can be done. It absolutely can be done, but it is something that you have to go into it with, I think, a little bit of expertise and a little bit of kind of awareness of what the player base on the Nintendo Switch is looking for. You know, it's not just making it a mobile game that you can slap controllers on. It's got to be better than that. Anyways, let's move on. Let's go back in time to take a look at this day in everything cool.